Are we live? We might be live. Well, that's good to hear. So this is EVE-NG, and this is supposed to be for network labbing. And I have never used it before. Well, I've used it for about the past hour. I've been trying to get these 4 things to work because it doesn't include any images, which makes sense, but I downloaded a VyOS image, an OPNsense image, MikroTik CHR, and Ubuntu Desktop. And hopefully we can play with stuff. So yeah. What do we want to set up first? What's an interesting setup? I'm going to delete this stuff because delete. And delete. And delete. I don't know, maybe we could try VyOS today? Make a network. Just like make a switch or something. I didn't read the documentation that much. Probably should have it open at least. Yeah, I don't know. Download. Yeah, the documentation. I have it on my side monitor so you guys don't have to be bothered by watching it. But networks, page 88. Hopefully you can hear me. Message me if you can't hear me, I guess. Okay, so those are like switches. Neat. We don't need a switch. What I do want is a management network. How does one make one of those? So first I gotta figure out how to just make like a thing. Maybe I do make a network. Type bridge management. There we go. Management. So here's our management. So if I make a, where do you bridge to? Management cloud 0. Okay, so if I make you and I make a new, I don't know, OPNsense is something I know. Yeah, you're gonna connect to VTnet 0. That's kind of cool. Now let's start you and see what you look like. Oh, neat. I'm using the HTML5 console because HTML5 is the future. So let's see if we can get OPNsense set up just to figure out how this whole thing works. Then we can do more complicated setup. Let's see, we're not going to do configuration import. Do I have anyone viewing? I do have someone viewing, that's good. I got comments too. Yeah, hello. Okay, good. They're showing up in OBS. OBS is like not handling DPI scaling correctly. So to do the live stream, I set the DPI on this monitor like stupid, so that it like enlarges everything so it looks good on stream. And OBS is like not pleased with that. So, yes, VyOS. I've never used VyOS before, so today will be a fun day. I've used OPNsense, which is why I'm starting with it, because I don't want like complete lack of knowledge of VyOS to be the reason I hate Eve. So, hopefully we'll get into VyOS today. I didn't read any tutorials on VyOS. I just thought I'd do a live stream and kind of YOLO it. I'm working on a video on Proxmox, bonds, and bridges. So, yes, VyOS. What is taking you so long to configure interfaces? How about we give you a Linux computer and we connect you like that? What are you connected to? Log in, install it. installer. Oh no, the password is OPNsense. I just know that. We'll do a UFS because we're already on another system. QEMU DVD-ROM. That's the install media, so 10 gig should be my install disk. Yeah. Did you not like hot plugging things? Why are you red? Request not valid. Maybe it doesn't like hot plugging things. Edge RouterOS. VyOS has quirks. Yeah, everything has quirks of some sort. I've gotten used to OPNsense's quirks because I've used it for so long. I've used pfSense for like more than 10 years now. I think I started on version 2.0 and I used 2.2 for a long time, then 2.4, and then I got real pissed off about 2.45 to 2.5 migration and went to OPNsense. Yeah, so I don't know what hardware the Edge RouterOS has. I guess I could look it up, but I don't think Ubiquiti publishes like block diagrams like MikroTik does. Or at least I haven't seen them. But I was real impressed with the MikroTik hardware I had last time I did a live stream 2 weeks ago. You have an all Ubiquiti network. Pain is something you deal with. I guess what I meant by that was not so much the chips they use, but like some of the MikroTiks have certain ports going direct to the CPU or things like that, odd quirks like that that are really nice to see in the block diagram. Like the model I have, for example, has a switch chip that does the gigabit RJ45 ports, but the SFP goes straight to the CPU. So it's just a thing you're aware of when you're designing networks using it, that traffic going over the SFP port has to get routed. Packets have to get routed, and the switch chip doesn't necessarily. Yeah, I have a very mixed network. Hero Mesh. Yeah, so I was actually thinking, so I had pfSense, and I had the SG1100, the little tiny white box, and it's awful. It's got a 1 gig symmetrical link between the switch chip and the CPU, which means if you have 1 gig internet, you can't get 1 gig symmetrical through the box because traffic has to go from all of the ports go through one 1 gig link to the CPU, and there's no hardware offload at all. Why is this taking so long? Maybe I'll just hit it over the head. Boom. Okay, now we can figure out what's mad about you. Quest not valid. Yeah, sure. We'll do that. Sounds good. Yeah, responding to comments. Yeah, so I had that, and I switched to a Protectly box, the Firewall 4B that has 4 Intel Ethernet ports, and I love that thing. It only uses like 10 watts or something like that. But I was looking at it, and the CRS328 I have has a 1.25 gig link to the CPU, and it can do routing at full L3, just not wire speed. Because the CRS328 can do L2 hardware offload, but it can't do L3 hardware offload. But it can do L3 on the CPU. So if I wanted, I could get rid of my OPNsense box and do everything on my big switch in RouterOS. And then I would have my 28-port PoE and SFP+, and I would just delegate one of those switch ports to be WAN. So that would be a possible thing to do. Oh, you've made poor choices here. Well, we'll hit it over the head again. I wasn't paying attention to it. Picked the exact backwards interface layout. Reconnect. What resources did I get Eve? Eve is running on a dedicated server that is a Ryzen 5 APU, so 3400G. It's got 16 gigs of RAM and 500 gig SSD, and it's the same server I used for... It's the one I just have on top of the motherboard box that I've used in a couple of videos when I need real hardware. No lags, no VLANs, WAN interface, VTnet 0, LAN interface, VTnet 1. Yes. Will Eve run inside Proxmox? I don't know. So my Proxmox server is pretty heavily loaded, and the other option I have is to use the big store. Yeah, I use Edge when I'm live streaming because then you don't see all of my, yeah. Why won't you find it? 140, I think, is Big Store. Oh yeah, Proxmox hates being on standard ports. Yeah. So this is the other node I have available to test with, and this is the HP microserver. And I think this one actually has less resources than... So we have 8 threads, so quad core, and 16 gigs of RAM. And the Eve server actually has also 8 threads, but 32 gigs of RAM. And it's newer. So in theory it should run on Proxmox, but you have to do nested virtualization, and you have to let... what's the name in Proxmox? If I go over here, probably have to create a VM just to show you. If I just like pick an OPNsense image, just so I can get to the network setup. Remember where the option is, but basically you have to allow, and some, I think VMware calls it forged MAC transmits. But whenever you do nested virtualization in Proxmox, the networking will be a bit unhappy because Proxmox will be like, I gave you a, yeah, see, like it gives it a VirtIO MAC address, and the nested virtualization will try to forward its own virtual machines, and the MAC address won't line up, and it'll get pissed. So I don't know if there's an... Yeah, you can do it, and Proxmox supports it. Is there like an advanced options or something? Need to go deeper. Yes, 3 levels deep. So I'm running Eve on bare metal, so it runs just fine. So now this guy here, the Linux desktop, in theory, on his E0, can connect to OPNsense's LAN and configure OPNsense. How many levels? Well, eventually when you get past the limits of hardware virtualization, QEMU will emulate everything, and it'll just get slower each time. 7 firewalls deep. There. That's 2, 3. There's 4. What is this? 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Scroll down, damn it. Ah! 9. There we go. 7 firewalls deep. Where's your little, yeah, your little connection thingy? Yeah, there we go. The poor Ryzen. Honestly, the Ryzen's doing just fine. My other option was to, I guess, run it on my workstation. Yes. Let's do this. Heh. Heh. I mean, we're not forwarding packets at like an alarming rate. There, we have to stagger them. They don't fit. There are 7 firewalls deep here that someone asked for. 4 firewalls deep. 5 firewalls deep. 6 firewalls deep. 7 firewalls deep. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now this is not nested though. These are all running on the same host. It's just emulating all these virtual links between them. So, did my Linux come up? It did come up. There's a list of default passwords for Eve. What is it? Test 1, 2, 3. Okay. Does Eve emulate internet? Yes, that is what the management does. In theory, the management is it's either bridged or natted to a to the hosts from Eve. So Eve is connected to my local network, and I believe it nats all of these guys. Maybe it bridges them. I don't remember the exact config it has. So are you getting, someone said a different, someone is foreign, whoever set this VM up. I don't know where the Eve guys are from. They're companies in the UK, so I don't know why they'd be using, I don't recognize that language, but thankfully the rest of it is in English. Do you get an IP address? You did, great. So in theory, this virtual machine, get out of here, stop it, should be able to connect to the OPNsense that's running, not the 7 firewalls deep. Imagine how much of a pain it would be to port forward through 7 firewalls. That's why we have IPv6. No more port forwarding. How well does this do Cisco stuff? I never answered that question. I don't know, I don't do Cisco stuff. I guess I shouldn't say I don't. I've never have. Oh, the dangers of self-signed certificates. Welcome to OPNsense. Let's see what IP it got from the management interface. Yeah, I'll probably be streaming for a bit. I have no idea. As long as this keeps staying interesting. Don't listen to us ever. Yeah, we'll keep the current password. We don't care about security today. It's all a lab. Default passwords are a nice thing. It's always interesting. Thank you. Edge router, core router, internal router. At some point though, like, you're doing routing, but you're not having like traffic limiting rules at every step. You're limiting things and then you're routing packets. Let's see what do we get on the WAN? Okay, so it bridged it to my internal network, because 172.27/20 is my home network. Yeah, like, so when you have a network that's at the complexity where you're doing multiple levels of routers, a lot of those routers are like doing L3 forwarding and not necessarily like ingress firewalling and things like that. Physical separation. I don't have anything physically separated. I do it entirely through... Really, I plug everything into the CRS 328, and that does everything. Except firewalling. OPNsense does that. But then I ran out of ports on the CRS 328, so I had to get more switches. And they were out of stock of the CSSs and CRSs, so I got some Netgears. Also had some Netgears for a while, but... and I have a 100 meg switch sitting next to me now that the cluster is running on, because the cluster lost its access to all the switch ports it needed. Yeah, I can get that. I guess another option you could have is you could have like a VLAN tagging switch that enforces like port IDs per apartment and then trunks them down to the router and VLANs. And if you prevent user ports from tagging their own packets, you keep the traffic separate. But if the router can do that for about the same price, okay, so that's a positive thing. So OPNsense just worked. That's neat. Yeah, like the MikroTik I got doesn't cost that much, and if you were to put one all over the building, you could do SFP back, and you have 4 switch ports, or 5 switch ports to connect to clients. Is it 5? It is 5. Wow, that thing's good value. Okay, so we have the 7 routers, 7 layers of hell, and we learned that OPNsense works, so that's a good step. What's our CPU like? The Ryzen is laughing. Memory's not laughing, but that's fine. Okay, so now let's try VyOS. Fiber! Oh man, I have fiber to my laundry room, and that's caused me no end of trouble. Not the fiber itself, the fiber's been great, but like absolutely everything is powered by PoE, so that it's battery backed up by the battery that backs up the switch. And all my stuff in the laundry room that's powered on the fiber link doesn't get that advantage, so a bunch of it reboots all the time. VyOS. That seems a bit low. 1024. Why not? So and I'm going to disconnect you. I have not seen the fiber with copper. I actually ran single strand, single mode fiber because I had such tight spaces I was pulling it through. And I could have fit a single Cat 6, but I wanted to run 10 gig to my bedroom on the second floor eventually. So my plan was to put like a CRS 305, the little quad port 10 gig switch. And so I use bidirectional fiber transceivers. But currently I'm only running at 1 gig, and it's only dealing with home automation equipment that would really like some batteries. I could actually show you the, I got a video coming out in a couple days on this little Raspberry Pi UPS board that I've been writing some software to add logging to. And it has proven that the power does flicker on the Raspberry Pis like every few hours. Look at those with envy. Okay. Oh, you like the UBNT logos. Now we got a Linux server, and we're going to connect you to ETH1. Why did I make a network this time? I haven't made a network yet. Make you there. We'll connect you to ETH1. That way I can connect more than one thing to it. MikroTik. Yeah, so I got started with MikroTik because like Unify was like all the rage. But like I looked at what I'm doing in OPNsense, and there's some things that just Unify can't do. EdgeOS can do them, but Unify can't. And so I stuck with Unify, and if I'm not using the whole Unify whole stack, doesn't make sense to pay extra for their switches and access points when other companies have individual parts cheaper and I'm going to manage it separately anyway. Start. So I've never used VyOS before, so it's going to be a good time. If it starts up, maybe. Get rid of you, get rid of you. So it is possible to do network labbing on Proxmox as it is. And basically what I would do then is I would go to, gosh, this looks so weird and when it's all blown up. I would like make an actual Linux bridge and yeah, do that. Come on. Oh, there you go. Now we learn VyOS. Documentation. Hi, you're back. What's the best way to learn VyOS quick? I didn't prepare for this video, I just kind of YOLO'd it. Oh my god, what is even the default password? They do NAT a bit different. Yeah, so I don't have Verizon, I have Comcast, and I have a switch, or I have a cable modem. So I don't have to deal with any of their stuff. It's VyOS. There we go. So I type configure. Hello, I'm in configure mode. Hello. We're learning about Eve. We made 7 firewalls of hell. We made OPNsense, and now we're trying to know VyOS. Because we can. And we didn't install it, so maybe I should install it. Does it actually tell me how to install it? I guess we don't actually have to install it, we just won't reboot. No changes to commit. Okay, so let's get some interfaces. Yeah, so Cisco, I have not tried any of the more proprietary. The only like commercial image I even have is MikroTik, CHR. There we go, happy. Happy? Oh god, okay. Interfaces are overrated. We already packets where we're going. We used to do things called like circuit switch networking, and that was in the olden days. Not old enough for me to ever use it, but it was a thing, and it was a nightmare. My coffee. Actually, it's not coffee, it's tea, and it is getting cold, you're right. Yes, don't forget RAID is not a backup. Okay, so this looks like the configuration because I typed show. Ah. Show interfaces. Nice. We learned something. Can I type interfaces? No. VBash. Interesting name. Oh, by the way, did you get a... commit? Yeah, so we did commit now, and how does one status interfaces? Possible completions. Ansible. I know Ansible's like all the rage. I haven't used it. I have such a weird disjoint set of environments that I'm reading a quick start guide on VyOS. Show. Okay, so you got an address. That's a start. Yeah, so I don't actually have to save because this is not even installed. So I'm just booting the live ISO and running it from there with no hard drive, which is probably fine. Okay, so we made VyOS do something. Back to configure. So I guess I could go here and I could start U, and we could just set a static IP. Okay, so here's our services. DHCP server. That was odd, how it wrapped around itself. Yeah, like that. Now I don't remember what I typed. Stack service, DHCP server. About the lack of quotes. Oh, you hear my keyboard? It is a, let's see if I can show it on the camera. Get the thing out of the way. It's a it is a Unicomp Model M replica with buckling spring switches, and it makes a very pleasing feeling to type on. I love it. The only language it understands is violence. I looked at recommended, like, I don't do as much gaming as I do coding, so I look at like keyboard recommendations for typists. Oops, typing in the wrong window. Yeah, whatever. Set service, DHCP server, LAN, subnet, .1.0/24, range, there we go. This is so weird that the text like wraps around itself. I wonder if it's a bug. Yeah, so I have the device, I have it set to do HTML5 instead of PuTTY, because I like HTML5 normally when it's well implemented. What do you code for usually? It's like professionally, I'm an embedded programmer, like really embedded. I do like real-time task scheduling stuff. Whenever I do the lowest level of code at the company I work for. When we have a new microcontroller we need to boot up, the first stage boot code in assembly, I do that. Like the MMU configuration routines in assembly, I do that. When people break things and can't figure out how to debug it, I debug it in assembly for them. I do assembly, and I do C, and I do some weird micro-coded timers. Yeah, cool stuff. But I also do Python for fun at home. And a lot of our test automation is written in Python too. So, yeah, C. I actually don't do C++ like at all. We strictly do not do dynamic memory allocation. We do stack-based, but we don't do heap-based. So C++ we can't do new. It's just not that worth it. Yeah, assembly is a ton of fun. It gets a lot of hate, but like my first assembly class I took in college, we had an assignment to write a program in assembly and in C to count the number of bits in a 32-bit integer. So he gave us a list of numbers that were 32 bits long, and we were supposed to find the algorithm that, on average, counted how many bits were won in the shortest amount of time. And I was the only person in the class that could beat the C compiler at doing it in assembly. class of like 20 people. I know Perl too. Perl was what I learned before I learned Python. And I use Python more, but I learned Perl in high school, believe it or not. Pissed. Yeah, assembly is really specialized. If you're working in assembly, you're doing very, very low-level optimization for a specific problem, or very early boot code, or dealing with like special processor features or things like that. Now, to be fair, I have actually never done x86 assembly. That's a whole nother monster. I have done MIPS, which is really easy. PowerPC, which is really nice. ARM is kind of in the middle. HCS12 is a freaking nightmare. Basic stuff like that. PowerPC, though, is what I did the vast majority of. Oh, I typed my stop address with a 0 instead of a 1. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you committed. MIPS is easy. So one of the brilliant things about MIPS was like some computer architectures were designed to be programmed by assembly programmers, like x86. And MIPS was specifically designed to be programmed by compilers because it made implementing the silicon easier. So MIPS only actually had 34 assembly instructions. There's no compare, there's no condition register. The way the pipelines work, it's not interlocked, so it never stalls the pipeline in the original MIPS. It's special. It's got some real work. Like, it's the original MIPS processor had a 5-stage pipeline, and because of the pipeline, it had carryback circuits, but it wouldn't stall. So if you executed an instruction that some of the instructions after it would start to execute before it knew the result of the previous instruction, and if you sequenced instructions in the right way, the result wouldn't be ready for the next instruction, and you just had to know that as a programmer. And the biggest one was the branch delay slot. So every time you do a branch, you say like, so in MIPS, the compare and the branch are the same instruction because there's no comparison instructions. So you say like, you do like a subtract and say like branch of 0 or branch of positive or whatever on a register, and it checks the result of the register and branches. But then because of that going through the pipeline, the instruction immediately after the branch would run anyway, even though it shouldn't, because it's the next. It took the branch, but it still ran the next instruction anyway because it already started it. And the compilers just know that they can fill that slot with another instruction if they want to. And the assembly programmers usually have to put a no-op in there, but it's a real weird. But there's so few instructions that there's not a whole lot of complexity to it. And then in PowerPC, we have 8 condition registers. 32 general purpose, 32 floating point. It's like 600 instructions or something like that. But unlike x86, all of them make sense. They all have a purpose. I'm following my guide here. We're going to set DNS forwarding. Oh, sir! I typed sir instead of set. That's what it was getting mad at me about. You happy? Commit? Okay, so... So this Ubuntu is connected to this VyOS. Does it get an IP address yet? Probably not. Connect. It's gonna be like no link. Oh, 169? It didn't even complain to me. I guess 169 is a valid address. That allow from. You're right, I didn't want to allow from 169. I guess we're allowing from 169 now. Oops. It's always interesting to me when I deal with certain networks, like the prefixes they use instead of CGNAT. Like I have a T-Mobile hotspot, and I always get an IP in, it's a CGNAT IP, so they're doing NAT 4 to 4 on their end, and I'm doing NAT 4 to 4 on my end. But like there's a dedicated range for CGNAT, and it's 100.64/10. And some people use it as another private range, which is not correct, but I guess who's to stop them? It is a kind of private range. And yeah, but T-Mobile gives me addresses in the 6 prefix, which belongs to the Department of Defense. And they've given me addresses in the 28 prefix that also belong to the Department of Defense. And they're just like, hopefully you didn't care about accessing all those .mil websites from your internet connection. Connecting. So it's not getting an IP address here. Probably because of the default block. Oh yeah, because traffic is being blocked. I'm just going to copy and paste. How is this like copying and pasting? It hates it. Maybe we should use putty. Can I switch you to putty somehow? I guess I could log out and log back in. I don't want to do that, but whatever. So when I use native console instead of HTML5, that should take me to putty. So now when I click on you, yeah, so it wants to open telnet client. There we go. Yeah, thank you. What are your favorite projects of mine? I always like hearing that. Now I can copy and paste. I am already in configure. Set NAT source 100. Set NAT source 100. Masquerade. Yay, it's happy. There we go. I'm just gonna copy and paste because I Can't be bothered to type this. This is a lot of typing to do. Rule action must be defined. Firewall failed. Damn, I just copied and pasted. Are you mad? Okay, so you're set up, right? Show firewall name. Rule 10. How do I remove a firewall rule? Question mark. Delete. Yay, we committed. There we go. You're not as happy, not as unhappy. So where do we say that LAN is? I guess we don't. We're just kind of configuring things based on their address range. So if we go back to you, and you want to open VNC, reconnect you. Are you going to get out? No, in front. Put no in front. Attempting to connect. How about we use the command line? IPA. IPA says F off. Okay, well, you're saving. Status, where's status? Possible completions. Show. I have to exit. Then I can say okay, so you guys got addresses. Let's show service. Huh. Can you just do like a giant dump of all of your status, please? Do a nice, just say show all. Show question mark. Show DHCP. Let's try that. Show DHCP. pissed. Did I like start the DHCP server or something? I thought I did. You are configured. Why are you not running? Do you know, I have not used Huawei devices. I haven't used a lot of like big names in networking, mainly because they cost a lot of money. And MikroTik does not cost a lot of money. Just really what it boils down to is how much it costs. You can't disable you. Lucky eBay thrifts. Yes, I do eBay thrift, but I don't know, sometimes I look for thin clients. I have just so many of them now. Clustering is a fun thing. Yeah. So that is not what I want. I messed something up somewhere. Do I have some sort of... You're just a bridge. Why do you care? Maybe just restart in operational mode. Yeah, maybe. It crashed. I actually have a MacBook Air M1 that I use for everything, and it's been surprisingly rugged. It's all aluminum. It's got some dents in it. My old MacBook got a lot of dents in it, and it survived. Well, it's crashing over and over. I managed to misconfigure it, following a tutorial. And I don't know why. Are we going up or down? Yeah, we're going down, okay. Yeah, the only thing I worry about on my MacBook now are the USB-C ports, because the old MacBook I had MagSafe, and if you never plug anything in, you just use the MagSafe, you can't really break it. The task failed successfully. How nice of it to tell me. It's not bricked. It'll be fine. Very normal system detox. Yeah, I have one that's a little bit loose now, but I got a really thick charging cable for it because I wanted a longer cable. I mean, so this is completely useless. It tells me that it crashed. Yes, it failed with an exit code, but why did it crash? Yeah, so mag conversions, I actually got those little tiny mag conversions for USB-C. and for lighting and stuff. And I'll show you. I got this this little weight here that's just full of them. I like pull one off and hold it up to the camera, maybe hold the whole thing up to the camera. These are all just little port to magnetic adapters, and I use them a lot, but they do wear out as well. They're not as robust as the native ports. But a lot of my stuff does have those magnetic connectors, like my mouse has it, and it's just really handy for things that don't get metal attracted in, because magnetic jacks tend to get steel pieces in them if you work in machining anything, which is maddening. So now you can figure out how I broke the DHCP server following the quick start guide. 2017 MacBook Pro. I actually had a 2014 MacBook Air that I used for 7 years, and I replaced the battery myself, and it was not hard to do. 2017 MacBook Pro, I think, might have the battery that's glued in. I know the 15-inch ones did. And it's possible to replace the battery, but not a huge, not easy. I've never had a Lenovo device ever, actually. So I don't know about the 2017. My dad had a 2015 MacBook Pro. He still has it. And he replaced the battery on it himself. I helped him a little bit on that. I've helped so many people replace their batteries in their MacBooks. It's not that hard for the older generation ones. Yeah. Yeah, his did not have the touch bar. It was the no, he had the touch bar. ThinkPads, Lenovo ThinkPads. Are they the ones with the little keyboard, little keyboard nipple? I had a laptop a long time ago that had a little nub in the middle of the keyboard, and it was the weirdest thing ever. Let's see what we messed up. Commit failed. We did a commit. Restart. What was the restart command? Scroll. Restart DHCP space server. Did you enable the DHCP server? It seems like it has done that on its own because I configured it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have that many laptops. I have thin client army here. I got 3 3040s, 3 5060s, 7010, the HP T620, and I just ordered, I think, a T530. maybe 430. And the Raspberry Pis, which are all old. I have so many old Raspberry Pis. Terminal control. So useless. I've done something wrong. Show. Dual socket. Ras Pi. I don't know. What do you want to see me do with the Raspberry Pi? I have a video coming Thursday. I'll pick it up and show it to you. Headphones back on. So this is a Raspberry Pi with a UPS that I bought for it. Oh, when are we going to be able to buy them again? I can't answer that one. For a while you could buy the Pi 400s. Can you still buy those? I thought about building like a Pi 400 lab for a video. Oh, that one's out of stock too. Oh my gosh. They got all of them. There was like a few months where you could still buy these, and I was like, maybe I should buy one of these and make it a thin client because no one can afford these things. Yeah, I know how you feel. So I have a bunch of Pi 1s, the old ones that didn't have the 4 mounting holes. I got like 5 of those, and then I got some of the B pluses that have the new mounting holes but are still the Pi 1 CPU, and then I have some 2s and some 3s. And a single 4. And I can basically just keep moving projects over to older Pis if they work. Like I had like a Pi 3 running like a network printer, and I moved it over to a Pi 1. Yeah, so for the stuff that I do, the Pi 400 would be perfect because, like, aside from this, like I do thin clients and I use the display and keyboard and everything. And if I could get a Pi 400 or 2 to use as thin clients, that would work fine for videos. But no, they're out of stock too now, unfortunately, which sucks. I don't know what I did wrong. Show interfaces. .192.168.1.1. Your LAN. It makes sense. Yeah, this is my video for this week. It's a Raspberry Pi UPS that uses 18650 batteries, and I have one Pi that's critical to my Home Assistant setup that runs my Z-Wave and Zigbee, and it's the one that's connected over fiber, so it can't be PoE. So this little board is going to keep it from rebooting randomly during power flickers. Oh yeah, the Dell Y's thin clients are great. Especially the newer ones, like the 3040 and the 5060 are both like a newer generation. Yeah. So like a lot of those things you mentioned, you use the Pi 4, you could use like the Dell 3040. Go grab one of those. I got a big stack of stuff here next to my desk. So this is the 3040. This is one of the 3040s I have. I have 3 of them now. And they're less than $50 usually. You get them used. But you get 2 display ports and gigabit and USB. And so like driving displays and stuff, this can do it just fine. It doesn't have GPIO though, so anything you need to do with GPIO, you kind of got to have a Pi or some other single board computer. I didn't type a 169 somewhere, did I? Just show the whole thing. Yeah, I know. It does have SDIO, and I've been looking to try to find like an SDIO based anything really. So I don't want to open it up now, but it has a card. It has an M.2 slot for a Wi-Fi module, and the E key for Wi-Fi can have PCIe, USB, SDIO, I2C, and most motherboards have PCIe and USB because like the common Intel chip is PCIe Wi-Fi and USB Bluetooth on the same board. But the 3040s used a different lower cost Wi-Fi chip that used SDIO, which is the same as the Pi, by the way. But in theory, you can use SDIO for MMC. So I was trying to see if anyone sells SDIO M.2 cards with storage to increase the storage on these things. But I haven't found any. Old AIOs. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so I have... Yeah, I've been kind of looking at those. If you have any model numbers, that'd be kind of cool. Little AIOs. Guess I could just get rid of all the firewall rules and see if that fixes it. Didn't spell anything wrong, because usually it's like you spelled something wrong and crashes. And the start range and stop range are in the subnet. Yes. $74X0. Pop that open. Oh yeah, those all-in-one desktops. Yeah, I've seen those before. How much are they going for on eBay? Optiplex 7450. Touchscreens? Man. That'd be fun if I needed a touchscreen. I don't know, does OBS have like a touchscreen interface? That would be a cool streaming computer. I stream with my normal desktop, which means when I do networking stuff, I gotta be careful to not lose the stream. And today my 10 gig card got angry at me. Yeah, so for kiosks, but like I'm thinking of like how I could use one. I've been wanting to set up like an ingest server because I have like different cameras and I have my wireless mics and all this stuff all records onto memory cards or whatever. And I want a setup where I can just like plug everything in and have it dump it all on the NAS automatically. And I was going to make UDEV do that. But UDEV can do that, but I have no way of like notifying me like the progress or when it's done. So I could make like a web app or something, but I'm not really good at web interface programming. Hang in wall. Not a bad idea. I don't know, I guess my philosophy with Home Assistant is to have as little interaction with it as possible and automate everything. Like people in the house get upset when the automated lights stop automating. They're like, I went into the bathroom and the light and fan didn't come on for me. And it's like I had to push the button on the wall. Like, what is this? Or like the security cameras, whenever Frigate stops working, which happens occasionally with Frigate. It locks up rarely, but occasionally. You know, like I came home and the lights didn't come on for me. It's like we lived for 20 years without this, and now it's critical, mission critical. I don't have any touchscreens. I have my phone, and I use my phone sometimes when I'm in bed, because I I turn a lot of the bedroom automations off at night. Headphones falling out. Okay. Oop. Yeah, so I have these timers that they run based on the sun angle, and they turn automations on and off and stuff like that. I have a Grafana. I think I showed you guys Grafana on the last live stream. Yeah, you. Like I said, I use Edge when I'm live streaming so that it doesn't show all of my stuff. But that also means it doesn't save my passwords. So like this is really useful to me. It's power monitor data. Maybe I should make a video on the power monitor. I put a lot of work into this before I did Home Assistant, so it's all done in Node-RED. And this was like 2 years before I even had a YouTube channel. But I got stuff like this. You like the power monitor? So the power monitor I have is this thing. And I picked it because it has no cloud at all. And it's not doing any AI bullshit. It just has a crap ton of current clamps. So it can do 32 channels of current clamps, and you can gang up more than one current clamp on a channel if you want to log more than one thing together. And so I went through and current clamped every single circuit in the house on the breaker panel. And this gets pushed to Node-RED, and Node-RED pushes it to InfluxDB. And then we end up here. And we get graphs. And yeah, it's beautiful. Oh no, I had to mess with the breaker panel a lot. I had to turn off the main. I took the cover off the breaker panel. Every single current transformer I got was a donut, so there's not a clamp on. So I actually had to pull the wire out of the breaker, slip the current transformer over it, slip it back in the breaker, tighten it again, one at a time for every single circuit in the house. And then some of them I doubled up, and you can either run 2 wires through one breaker if they're on the same leg in a North American split phase system, or you can connect them to the gem. It has a 4-pin terminal block, so you can connect 2 out-of-phase sensors, and it'll add them together as a 240-volt load. They have clamp-on ones, but they cost more. So I only got the clamp-on ones for the big wires. And for all the 15 and 20 amp circuits, I got the really cheap donut ones and slipped the wire through it. And then for a bunch of them, I dressed the wires down the side of the panel with zip ties to keep the donuts from moving around. And ran all those 32, I actually had 34 current transformers. So 32 channels, 2 of them are grouped. And they all run into the gem, which is next to the breaker panel, and then I ran PoE to it. No neutral. Yeah, no neutral is kind of a rough time. I guess you could put like a Shelly in the light or something and use the switch in the wall as a low voltage switch. I've seen people do that. It's not a bad idea. Yeah, this thing actually needs 2 power sources. It needs a AC transformer to measure the line voltage, plus a DC transformer to power itself. So for the DC transformer, I power it over PoE with a PoE splitter, and then the AC transformer obviously measures line voltage and needs to be accurate. So I got this thing, and I'm pulling data from it in Node-RED and pushing it to Influx, and it comes here, where it ends up getting logged. And I can see who's using all my power. And if I go down here, shop lights. The shop lights happens to be the circuit where all of the home lab plugs into. The shop plugs and shop lights. So shop plugs is what runs the it's running the Eve server, it's running the storage server. What's it called? It's called the Brultec Green Eye Monitor. And it's like, I think I paid about 600 bucks for it. I got this. So I got the Wi-Fi Ethernet, and I got 2 package Gs, I think, which include, yeah, all micro 40s, and then I bought a couple extra CTs. So it's not terribly expensive. And then the Wi-Fi Ethernet module, you can run it in either Wi-Fi mode or Ethernet mode, and when it's in Ethernet mode, it turns off the Wi-Fi. So it's like completely Wi-Fi cloud free. They don't even have a cloud service. If you want a cloud service, you gotta do it on your own. The tech I'm using on my website. I think I actually did, if I go to my website, not that one, tags. I've gone back and I've backwritten some projects that from the past, but I don't think I did this one. Maybe I did. Yeah, I actually did back post this project. So here's a picture of what it looks like. So these are all the CT wires running through the wall. Yeah, so I did end up backposting projects, but I just never made YouTube videos about them. And then I've got this TP-Link PoE splitter that splits out PoE to power the monitor. And then another advantage of that is when I had a power flicker before, I would just lose connection to the monitor for a few minutes as it booted back up. And now, because it's PoE powered, it reads 0 voltage on the line voltage, and I know that the power went out. I did it in Node-RED, and I never really migrated to Home Assistant. So these 2 pictures are all I have of it. I never made a video on it because it was well before I was doing YouTube. But yeah, I've been doing a website about a year longer than I've been doing YouTube. And some of the projects I went back and made YouTube videos for, and some of them I didn't. But this is the power monitor. Yes, fully cloud-free, big deal to me. No clouds, and the other thing that we like in Grafana is NTOP NG. So the top row of graphs comes from Telegraph, which is a plugin that runs on basically anything that pulls like raw statistics. So it's pulling the raw interface statistics on OPNsense. If I go into the Edit tab, I showed this in the last live stream too. Yeah, so it's getting the derivative of bytes received and the derivative of bytes sent from IGB0, which is the WAN interface. And that's how I get traffic on the internet. Yes, almost everything I have is cloud-free. Home Assistant notifications go through their cloud, but it's minimal. Email, of course. Email notifications too. And this comes from NTOP. So NTOP makes Mac-based graphs of data. And I can be like, who is using data and why? Somebody was doing a lot. Somebody has been streaming. It's probably my live stream here. And then I can go look up in like the DHCP lease table or something and see which one of these MAC addresses corresponds to people. And I can guarantee this is going to be an Apple TV. This is going to be an Apple TV. And these next 2 are probably, one of the 2 is going to be my desktop. Because that's just how the data goes. And then we can blame people for using all the data. So yeah, this was the one thing that I didn't find in MikroTik that I was a little bit unhappy about last week. Grafana is great. I love Grafana. What else? Power factor. Those 2 are the ones that I actually do use, the power one and the internet one. I put a lot of time into those graphs. Yeah. I don't know, I started home automation with like Node-RED and Grafana and InfluxDB, and I do Home Assistant now, and Home Assistant just doesn't have the same level of graphing sophistication that Grafana does. Grafana just makes much nicer view read-only dashboards, where Home Assistant's more for like interactive control and things. So I do like Grafana a lot. Yeah, Grafana you can script a lot of things in it. Like if this one's probably not. Yeah, I'm just pulling from that data. This one getting a total too? I don't remember how these are all scripted, but LibreNMS. I haven't tried LibreNMS. Telegraph works for the internet. And then I have some specials. Hopefully there's nothing that shows up down here. Yeah, good. So these recent gateway status, basically it queries the gateway status from the OPNsense API periodically. And if it changes, it publishes here to a list in InfluxDB. And so this only shows the last 24 hours, but this would show if, like, if I go back. I guess we've had a reliable week. How about we go back to 30 days? Yeah, so this shows if we lose internet or something, and then did you log out or something? No, you didn't. Okay. So these gateway status and interface addresses will tell me if the internet went out or whatever. That goes through Node-RED, and I have a video, or I have a blog post on that. This one. Everything looks like crazy blown up. RRD tool. Yes, I used to use RRD back when I used PFSense. But when I switched to OPNsense, it was around the same time I switched to Grafana, and I've just been so happy with it. So push everything into Grafana. I need to find a better way. I haven't done like continuous queries to like reduce the data. So the data comes in at a high rate and it just gets logged forever. So like my energy is like logged at a 5-second rate. That's a lot of data. I never got this to work. I'm still pissed about that. Did you finally get an address? No. Never found out what I did wrong in VyOS. I guess I could give up on VyOS and try another node. Let's add RouterOS. 256 megs of RAM. Poor RouterOS. They're like, who needs resources when you have RouterOS? ETH1. And you're gonna go over like that. And can I delete you? Yeah, good. Okay, I'm gonna connect you over there. And start. Yeah, so Eve has been nice so far. That was the whole point of this live stream was Eve. Now I'm an hour and a half in, and I've done some stuff in Eve. We made the 7 layers of hell. Let's open. Enter login. And then the next level deeper. MicroTick, no. Change your password, new password. Oh yeah, that's a new thing. The Raspberry Pi OS makes you change your password now too. I just learned that yesterday and I could not figure out why I was typing my password wrong. Oh, no, I like distractions. They're fun. I like having this conversation. You guys are always great to talk to. New password. Yay. I should be able to winbox to you right now. Oh, I don't have an IP. Interface. Ethernet. Okay, so I have interfaces. Gives you yeah, NetFlow. In theory, NTOP can do everything. So NTOP runs on the firewall and it captures packets from the interfaces. They have a system to record NetFlow data, but that's not open source. So NTOP is open source, but the NetFlow to NTOP bridge is not, and it has license fees. So I could use NTOP with MikroTik by using NetFlow, but that would be a pain. The other option I have is to do a port mirror. And so on MikroTik, I could port mirror one of the ports to a different server and then have NTOP run on that server to collect data from the port mirror. So that instead of it mirroring data off of the interface in Linux, it could mirror it off the port mirror. EdgeOS has it. EdgeOS has NTOP or it has NetFlow? NetFlow is really popular. I don't have great software I've liked that uses it. I've liked NTOP. In the couple of years I've been using NTOP. I'm sure there's other solutions too, but NTOP is the one that I've used. Now I gotta remember how to, oh, can I do a MikroTik MAC address connection? Oh, yes. Oh, it got an IP address, that's why, okay. And your address is, oh yeah, Winbox. Port mirror, yes, port mirror is like a way to do it for sure. NTOP. Let me just log into NTOP and see what it looks like. What port is it on? $3,000. What is the password? Did I just use the default? No, okay. I actually did change the password. Good. Didn't change the username though. Okay, so this is what NTOP looks like if you've never used it. Yeah, so currently we are talking heavily to this guy. And oh yeah, I only have it set up to listen on LAN, I believe. So by default it listens on all interfaces, and the downside you get with listening on all interfaces is you see traffic both before and after it's been natted, so it kind of shows up twice. Flows. Dismiss. Yeah, so we're sending a lot of data to YouTube. Who would have guessed? So this can work in a port mirror, or it can work running on the firewall, which I do with OPNsense. And if you want to use it with NTOP data, then you have to get a license for the NTOP bridge. Hosts. Probably got a lot of them. Yeah, we do have a lot of them. Great. So this is like me running on IGB1. I don't remember if I have it set to run on IGB1 or not. I guess I don't. So dedicated hardware for ingest. Yeah, when you're handling a lot of data, like that amount of data, you probably need dedicated hardware. Anytime it's big enough to cluster, it's probably big enough to dedicate to. Yeah, so stuff is talking to stuff, and is a happy day. Oh, for digest. Yeah. So sometimes it will like figure out the name by sniffing DHCP and things like that. Sometimes it won't. But yeah, it's NTOP is, I like it. I haven't tried Security Onion, but I'm sure it would work decently well. Now we have Winbox. Honestly, I really like Winbox after my last live stream. It's really grown on me. I haven't tried it in on macOS yet. Apparently they officially support Wine, which is nice, but I'd like a native build. Oh yes, you're not an interface, you're an IP. So you got yourself an interface. And how did you come set up by default? Management demanded you have logging of all, not logging of all, like not bytes, but all like flows, like who's connecting where. Because that's essentially what, I think it came the other direction. WebFig is a version of Winbox, and Winbox came first, I think. I like how I can have more than one thing open in Winbox and use it. I was very suspicious of Winbox before I spent 3 hours with it 2 weeks ago on live stream, and now I'm very happy. What are you using for storage on Proxmox? How many resources do you give to Eve? Eve. So Eve is running on dedicated hardware. It is a Ryzen APU, so it is a Ryzen 5 3400G. So it's the one with integrated graphics, quad core. 32 gigs of RAM, and currently it is using memory, not a lot of CPU. Ah yes, when your competitors have cybersecurity problems, it makes you reconsider your cybersecurity. Which is probably a good thing. You don't want to be like, you don't want to be the one in the news. You want your competitor to be the one in the news, probably. At least for cybersecurity. So yeah, this obviously does not need this many resources. I mean, I'm also not sending hardly any data over this. But when you do network labbing, you're not sending a lot of data through. You're not testing, like, can I get gigabit throughput on my 7 layers of hell? You're like, does it work? Back to Boris's question about storage. So I have a number of different Proxmox nodes. So we'll log into you. So this is the one I use most of the time. So this is a, you guys are gonna, before I got into the thin client cluster, I was still into low power. So I got one of these. Bing, of course, because we have the Edge defaults. This little guy here is a A300 chipset motherboard that's got like everything you could want. And what's interesting to me is that the A300 chipset doesn't exist. There's no chipset on the motherboard. It's literally just taking I/O from the CPU and running it out to connector ports. So the AM4 CPU socket can do 3 display ports, I think it's 4 USB 3 routes, and like 2 SATA ports or something, and then 24 PCIe lanes. So this thing brings out, they take 1 PCIe lane for Ethernet, that's on board, and then they have a USB hub chip to do USB 2 off of one of the USB 3 routes, and basically everything else is direct wire to the CPU. So I have this guy with 16 gigs of laptop RAM and a 250 gig SATA SSD, and that is what I run Home Assistant and Frigate. It has a Wi-Fi slot, and I put the Coral TPU Wi-Fi slot, Wi-Fi key in there to do AI for Frigate. And I use this for basically everything. And I mostly use local ZFS on one disk. And then I send backups to my TrueNAS server. And that's basically what I do for storage. And then the TrueNAS server I use for ISOs and basically backups. So yeah, so I got 2 6 terabyte disks in TrueNAS and Mirror. I have a 5 terabyte drive standalone, so 2 separate ZFS pools. And then Proxmox has its own ZFS pool on a single disk that gets backed up to the Mirror. And then Big Store is the donated HP microserver, and that has local ZFS as well. And it doesn't have anything on it at all because I haven't made anything on it yet. So that's what I use for storage. And then I also mount that same thing here. So all my ISOs are accessible over Samba if I want to use VirtualBox. Or if I just want to download them and drop them in the folder, I do that too. You can do ZFS on one disk. Basically, you have no data redundancy, but you have data integrity. So ZFS will still checksum everything. It'll still ensure that all the blocks are valid. If you lose blocks, it will tell you that files have been lost, basically. So you get more data integrity guarantees than like ext4 or LVM. You get all the advantages of using ZFS send and all that cool stuff. You don't get... You can still lose data, but in ZFS, at least it'll tell you that you lost the data instead of just silently losing the data. And then ZFS also does duplicate things on disk quite often. They have different tiers of what gets duplicated. So by default, regular data blocks, like parts of files, don't get duplicated on disk. And metadata gets duplicated twice, and meta-metadata gets duplicated 3 times, as well as the Uber block. So the chance of you losing a ZFS system on a single disk from just losing like a bad sector is very low. The chance of you losing the file system is low. So like if you have a drive and you lose a sector on the drive and you have ext4, you probably just lost some data in the file, and if it's metadata, you probably lost some directory structure information or corrupted some amount of stuff. With ZFS, the Uber block is triplicated and the meta-metadata is triplicated. So if you lose a block containing meta-metadata, it'll repair itself. And if you lose file metadata, you might lose the whole file, but at worst case, you're losing the file that contained the block that got corrupted. It's never going to corrupt the file system hierarchy because that's duplicated if you just lose a single block. Partition tables. Yeah, so what probably happened is it probably made the entire zvol incoherent because the zvol is a collection of blocks. Mirror is certainly safer, but if you don't have a mirror, running a single disk gives you more, at least tells you that you've lost data versus not using it. You're not using ZFS, which is still an advantage, even if it's not as advantageous as running a proper mirror or a RAID-Z. So data rot's not eliminated, but at least you know about it with ZFS. So that's why I run single disk ZFS basically all over. I don't have many systems that don't run ZFS. No, it is not protected against improper use. You can still mess it up on your own. But that's true of ZFS in any case. You can always mess it up on your own. Yeah, storage is a tricky one. I think the big thing people get hung up on is that Samba is really hard to manage on your own. And especially because Microsoft-style permissions don't translate into Linux-style permissions unless you're using NFS v4. And Linux doesn't support NFS v4 ACLs natively. ZFS does, but Linux does not. So TrueNAS is using a special feature of Samba where Samba goes directly to ZFS to get permissions instead of going to Linux to get file permissions. And Samba can do that as long as the backing file system supports NFS v4, which ZFS does, but not every file system does. So that's a true nightmare. That's why so many people love TrueNAS, because it really simplifies managing Samba. And Samba is the great headache of everything. I won't say Samba's... So the great headache I've had with Samba is the ACLs are difficult to manage if you're not already using NFS v4 ACLs. Or if you have... All your users have to have a Samba password separate from their Linux password, unless you're doing a domain join or things like that are complicated. So, like, that's been my experience with Samba. It's not that easy to set up. you're mixing Linux and Windows things, and Windows wants to do things its way. Samba has to do things that way because Windows does. Yeah. So the file permissions have been the trickiest thing for me for Samba, and the user permissions, having the separate Samba password, not being able to integrate with Linux user management because you have to have a separate Samba password. That's the nightmare. Yeah, I do JBOD with CFS as well. Well, with CFS and hardware RAID, you still get data integrity protection that a lot of RAID controllers don't do. It's just kind of odd. Yeah, so where was I? I was playing with Eve. My microtik came up. How about we give you 69.1/24. On Ether 2. That is the nice thing. Samba, having a good Samba setup is like the ultimate goal of storage. Because once you get Samba set up, everything can connect to it. Windows will only connect to Samba, basically. I mean, you can make it with like some add-ons, but a normal person's Windows install without a whole lot of configuration is only going to want to use Samba. Mac OS has really gone to Samba instead of AFP. Yes, we hijacked it into storage. I still have Winbox open. We're still doing networking. I used to do AFP with Apple because that was the only way to do Time Machine, but they've moved Time Machine on to Samba as well. Yeah, I don't do Windows all the time. NFS, NFC, do you mean NFS? I think you mean NFS. I use NFS for some reasons. Mostly with my Mac, because dealing with tiny... I have a... so NFS does authentication... So Samba does authentication of everything server-side. When you create a session with Samba, you're creating a session as a user to the server, and the server is doing permission checking and things like that. With NFS, you're kind of doing it both ways. So with NFS, the client is mounting the directory off the server. The server authenticates that the client is allowed to access the server, but then the client has to validate that the user has permissions to access the file. So it's a bit odd if you're used to doing something like Samba where everything is authenticated server-side. I use NFS. I have a picture sharing website that's entirely static, and it's basically generated by some shell scripts and some Python scripts. And they'll generate all the photo albums from pictures, and they'll resize them and do all that work. And I end up with directories of like 2,000 files. And they're all tiny because they're all thumbnails. And trying to like do anything with those files over Samba is just a nightmare. NFS does a lot better, so I use NFS for that. But mostly I use Samba, even on the Mac, because, I mean, NFS is faster, but only if you're, like... Samba does not gracefully handle a large number of files. If you're copying, like, a 10 gig video file, NFS and Samba is going to give you about the same result. If you're copying a billion little thumbnails, NFS has some advantages. So that's why I use NFS and Samba. Mostly I try to use Samba because it interoperates with everything else. I still have small file problems with Samba, with SMB. With NFS, you don't have to trust the client entirely. It does some authentication on each end, I guess is the best way to say it. It kind of assumes that like UIDs and GIDs are common on both ends of the connection. Bash on Windows that makes WinG... Yeah, Windows is always just a fun platform to support in every way. And I say that in the worst way possible. see, I was going to add a DHCP server. I think there's just like a... Not you. You, the wizard. Nice. Got a wizard. Synology. From what I've heard, Synology makes good stuff. I have never used their stuff because I do everything on my own, but the thing is older than you. I have seen some things that are legitimately older than me in, oh my god, the second company I worked for, their part number, and they had a mainframe that managed part inventory across factories. And so every time you had to create a new part number or revise a part number, it had to go through the mainframe session. And you'd create like a terminal session to the mainframe, and it had like a terminal emulator, like they would draw like a graphical interface out of text, and you would move your thing around the boxes and click and like enter on them, and it was just a giant pain in the ass. They still used that system for a very long time. The oldest thing I have worked on myself, I think, was a system that simulated, it was a hardware in the loop simulator. So I was working on an electronic control unit, and we had a hardware in the loop simulator that was built around 2003. And it originally, maybe it was earlier than 2003, it originally ran Windows NT 4 on a Pentium 3, and we upgraded it to a Core 2 Duo running Windows XP Pro. And that was as far as we could upgrade because all of the I.O. went through ISA cards. Some of them are PCI and some of them are ISA. And we couldn't get rid of ISA. We couldn't go to Windows 7 because we didn't have ISA. And IT hated us because we had Windows XP Pro running in 2021 on a Core 2 Duo. And the Core 2 Duo was the upgrade. How does Linux like us now? Probably already have you open. I do already have you open. Slowly networking in the background. I miss the days of like IF config sometimes. I just don't know IP as much. Open VMS. Son. I have never had to work on anything quite that old. The oldest stuff I've done was like Windows 95, I think. Oh man, you got an address. Okay, so my experience with MikroTik CHR was far, far easier than VyOS. So that's might make my VyOS video very short and angry. I know people love VyOS, but what did I burst your bubble from saying? I haven't worked on anything that old. My headphones keep falling out. I've done some old stuff. It's just not that old. It's like the oldest, like growing up, we had like 10 megabit Ethernet coax, and that's like where I started. Windows 95 on 10 megabit coax to like Windows XP on 100 megabit to gigabit, 10 gig. I never did anything outside of like the Microsoft or the Linux ecosystem. Or Mac, I guess. I've done all three of those. I've done BSD too, a little bit, just dealing with firewalls and stuff. Thick. This was actually thin Ethernet. We had 10-base-2, which used the BNC connector, not the thick Ethernet with a vampire tap. So my house growing up, we had 10-base-2 across cable lines in the wall. So it's called thin Ethernet. Then when we moved in 2000, we got Cat 5, not 5e, Cat 5, and we got I know it's supposed to be 50 ohm. I'm pretty sure we were using RJ6 coax, RG6, which is the standard cable TV coax. And then when we moved to our new house, we Cat 5, not 5e, and that's done a lot of things. I don't have any coax hardware anymore, I don't think. So if we want to set up the 7 layers of firewall hell, what if we did that with, move you over here. If we did add an object node, RouterOS, coax networks. There's just not a lot of reason to in this day and age. Oh God, that layout. Come on. Make a hexagon. I like hexagons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1 in the middle. Yeah, so people, I don't know, I see so much misinformation about people about Cat 5 and Cat 5e and stuff like that. Cat 5, no E, can do gigabit, and some people think like they need to replace it. I feel bad for them. We're gonna connect you up. Ooh, you're gonna need a lot of ethers. Get over there. You're gonna need 6 ethers, I think. Why do you keep going off the edge? Oh, I see what it is. In EVE-NG, you can't go past 0. So if you start expanding your network out to the left, eventually you have to just like... Oh God, I can't do that either. That was a bad choice. Stop it. I've made a horrible mistake. There we go. Deselect, please. Stop it. Doesn't bother in most cases. Yeah, so actually the gigabit standard came out before the Cat 5e standard. So I think the marginal connection thing is that back in the day, like we used to, I remember wiring a 4-pair Cat 5 for 200 meg links because I had one jack in the room and I'm behind the jack, it had one faceplate. I took the faceplate off and got a double faceplate and punch down half the wires to each jack, so you got a 100 meg link. Then I could plug in my 2 computers to the switch in the basement, and at that time we had, growing up, I think we had an 8-port 100 meg switch, and so we didn't have 2 switches. I couldn't afford another switch. But I had my desktop and I had my old desktop, and I wanted to connect to both the network. And that's how I got started with Linux, actually, was that second desktop, my old desktop. I got a new desktop, I think, when I was I think around 2005, maybe? Ran Windows XP. And my old desktop that ran also XP, I think. I upgraded to XP. I switched the old desktop to old desktop. Yeah, I ran Ubuntu on the old desktop. And God, I don't know what I did here. I refresh. There we go. Yeah, I ran Ubuntu server 6.06 Dapper Drake. And back then I was running Apache HTTP server with PHP, and I had a forum accessible on the internet via port forwarding. And all of my friends could connect to my forum and we could communicate in the days before a lot of us had cell phones, I think. So I was running Ubuntu, and I was running yeah, so I think that computer was like a 700 megahertz Celeron or something like that. And Windows XP. It's good enough for XP. So we're making a star here because we can. Because who doesn't want a star? 3, 4, okay. MMX. I don't think I got any machines that were that old. Making a ring network. You need a link up here. I have to stop you to attach networks to you. That's not super fun. Well, I had to edit you anyway because I need more Ethernet, so we'll just give you 6. Yep. Yeah. 386. So now we have the Great Ring Network. I don't know, what else do we want to connect to the Great Ring Network? How about we get rid of you? Can delete you, right? Okay, that's good. VyOS. We didn't like VyOS at all because VyOS was hard and we like easy. So you're going to connect up there. I need 4. And you're going to connect to my subnet. I'm going to make you connect over there. Why can you not connect? I have to stop you to reconnect. Maybe if I make a new network. Then you won't bitch at me. Where did you come from? Came to the States. I always like hearing where people are from. I'm always amazed that my YouTube analytics show that there's people from all over the world that watch me because I guess networking happens all over the world, but my videos are in English, so I can only reach so far. So we have the hexagon now. Ooh, so that's some interesting routing paths. Odessa, okay. I've never been to Eastern Europe, but I've heard things about it, I guess. It's actually a YouTube channel I follow from northern Ukraine that does videos on Soviet computers. It's fascinating. In Canada. I'm actually really close to Canada. My grandfather was born in Quebec, Montreal. And I live not too far from the border of Canada. Netherlands. I visited the Netherlands on accident once. On accident. We were on a trip and yes, I got Canada. And we flew into, we took a train from London to Brussels, which is the Eurostar, and then we rented a car in Brussels and drove from Brussels to Germany. And just because the border between the Netherlands and Belgium is a little bit of a mess, we cut the corner through the Netherlands and ended up stopping to eat lunch in the Netherlands. So that's my experience with the Netherlands, was stopping to get a sandwich on the road. Oh, I have a cat coming in. Yeah, I had a good time on that trip. Germany was fun. Let's see, we're going to start all of you guys. Winbox. We're gonna have, oh, we don't need Winbox. We probably should have Winbox. Can I connect you? Oh, I need to stop you. I can't, yeah, sorry guys. Can't do networking changes. Well, the VMs are running. Slight downside. Just connect everyone to management. What if we just delete the one in the middle? And make a new... Yeah. We'll connect everyone in there. Yeah. ETH1. You should be ETH1. You're already connected to ETH1. You are... We're going to make this the most complicated circle possible, so we have to route around the ring. But first we're going to give everyone access to management because it is a pain to manage things via other firewalls. And then we'll give you internet on ETH, I guess 5 is the next one. And then we start them all. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Circle of Fire. We're going to try routing. I'm going to start you up too. Why not? Let's see what Winbox says. Winbox. There they go. Look at all those cloud routers. Those poor things. No idea which one this is. We're gonna name you. Oh, can I not rename them while they're started? Ah. Slight downside. I do really like how I don't have to manually configure a crap ton of like bridges and stuff to do network labbing, but having to stop everything to change the configuration is kind of irritating. We're going to be FW1, FW2. Start you all, then I'll give you a host name, then I'll connect in Winbox. Yeah, if my experience with Canadians is they like to make a lot of jokes and eat poutine and things like that. I've had a good time every time I've gone to Canada, but it's always been like as a tourist. How does one change the host name? System. System. Print. Okay. Humor is always good for sure. So you're a 36. So if we connect you in Winbox, one thing I never did in Winbox was Poutine is Life. Yeah, I've actually had to make it myself here in the US. Like, I live so close to Canada and like nobody sells it. And it's just hard to find, like, even to find like cheese curds and stuff. Hopefully everyone knows what poutine is. It's a Canadian, I don't want to call it fine food, but it's good. Huh. Montreal. I've never been to Montreal. I've never been to Quebec. I've been to Ontario a lot of times because I live less than an hour from Ontario, so that's where I go. And been to British Columbia. That was beautiful. And the Vancouver Island. It's so weird how Vancouver Island is not where Vancouver is. I'm sure some of you know what that means, but okay, so we got one win box. How about we make more win boxes? Because win box is life. 37. So if you're 37, which one are you? Damn. Quebec is worse. I live in Ontario. Oops. So you must be 2. So IP address print. You are 37. Okay. That means this is system identity firewall 2. Found 2 of them out. Admin blank, no license, change your password. Yeah, Quebec. You are 38. That makes logical sense. Inbox.exe. 38. System identity firewall 3. Montreal has amazing food. I have never been, unfortunately. I bet I can just click new. Come on. Did you give me a new winbox? Supposed to give me a new winbox. I'll re-winbox again. 39. You're going to be 4. Whatever, you're 40. Winter Peg. I have been to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I'm sure if Winnipeg is like that, it's going to be a fun time. I used to Firewall 5. I used to visit the UP every year for a school competition. And it'd be cold up there. So I now have 6 firewalls, and I want to try routing. So firewall 1, that'd be this guy in our network diagram. He's got 1 billion ethers. So we're going to make you a DHCP client on ether 5. And we're not going to add a default route for you. Surrey, British Columbia? I didn't stay in Vancouver, I don't think. I stayed in Washington State when I was visiting. Okay, so you've been bound. And IP addresses. Routing. This is probably going to go terribly. Maybe I should read the documentation before I do something dumb. So far, the stream has shown me that a very diverse number of people watch my content, and RouterOS is way easier than VyOS. I have yet to mess it up. 2.5 hours in. OSPF. Okay. First thing to do is add an instance. Okay. Routing OSPF instances. That worked. Brampton. I've been to Brampton before. Best curry this side of the ocean. I have had some Indian friends in college that made me try authentic Indian food, and oh man, I was going back to the soda machine like after every single bite. It was very, very spicy. Area. Hello. Before you leave for work, we initially started with EveNG. We made the 7 layers of hell with OPNsense. I tried to learn VyOS and found that VyOS was hard, and went back to RouterOS. That's really been growing on me. I know OPNsense. I started with OPNsense at the beginning because OPNsense is what I know and love, and MikroTik is really seems to work well. I'm wondering if I should switch my home network to run on my CRS 328 instead of area. So you need to be an area. Backbone. When do I get to make interface templates? Okay, I see. So we go back to our network. So we want you to run on ETH3. Huh. How about we say all? Or we just get rid of that. Nope, 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 nope. Networks. How about /8. So anything on the 10 will be our internal prefix, because 172 is my home network. I'm going to use 192.168 for my 2 test networks, so 10 will be our point-to-point links. You are going to be PTPs. Yes. There we go. And now I need to set IPs on all of my point-to-point links. So either 3 is going to be $30. Either 4 is going to be either 4, and either 5 has DHCP. Interesting. People finding each other via my live stream. I have a Discord too if you want to find more people from around the world. I do some things on Discord sometimes. Hopefully no one's been messaging me all day. Thankfully not. Yeah. So let's see if we can get Firewall 1 and Firewall 2 to talk to each other. So you have an address on either one, which is my management network. And you're not going to get a route from that. So either 3 is going to be 2.2.30. Either 3. And routing OSPF. What did I name it in the other one? Backbone V2. Worst case Ontario. Yeah, I like Discord for talking to groups of people. I have Telegram and I have Signal and I use those for talking to individual people, but for messaging like a community, Discord seems to work pretty well. Okay, so you found an interface. That's a start. We're learning how to OSPF. Interface template. Maybe I should go to the routing table and see what we found. How does one view the routing table? Worst case Ontario. Okay, so you found a route to that subnet via Ether 3. That's cool. So that's you finding a link to you. So now you're going to be dot 1, 2. I need to add text. Text. Add it. Cultural exports of Canada. The best thing to come out of Canada is definitely poutine. Full show. Come on, edit text. I guess I could like better separate my networks, but oop. The Red Green Show. Oh my gosh, I used to watch the Red Green Show. I know it's Canadian, but it's hilarious. And if you foreign people have seen it, but it's not the worst thing to come out of Canada. I don't know where my new text went. Okay. Ah! Got cut off at the bottom of the screen. Oh yeah, you're down there. We're just gonna move you way down there so we can scroll down further. The Red Green Show was not that bad. For its time, it was kind of funny. Bieber back to... Yes, you can have Bieber back. We don't want you here. Go back to Canada. 6. We made a ring. A hexagon. And we made 6 versions of Winbox. So now you need an address... 172... Nope. $30 on Ether 2. Then you need on Ether 2. Duct tape fixes everything. Yes, that's very accurate. Extremely accurate. That's exactly what happens. Duct tape fixes everything. On Ether 3. Magically, you should start finding routes now. Maybe? Firewall 3. Firewall 2 doesn't have routes set up, does it? You do. He's a fellow Justin. What addresses did I give myself here? 3.2. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Of course I did. So now you should just like magically have route lists show up. Oh, you're not a broadcast. You're a point-to-point. Yeah. Oh, the other famous Justin? There we go. Now you found each other. Now we're gonna make a ring. Maybe. 5 and 6. It's good. I'm trying to make a ring of OSPF networks. 5.2/30 on Ether2. And 10.0.6.1/30 Ether3. That looks good. So far, this has been amazingly easy. You should just like magically work. I don't know a lot about Trudeau either. He's just portrayed as like, as an American, he's portrayed as like forming complete sentences intelligently, and that's kind of a big deal here. After our last president. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Makes sense. Interesting that it chose to go entirely that way. Did I set something up wrong here? I did. Oh no, you're right. Yeah, okay. So now we have all of our OSPF links to each other. Term limits. I don't know. I've never heard of NetLab. PNetlab. I guess we could look at it right now with Bing. IO limits. Yes, so what, how hard is the Ryzen working today? Not very. 4%. So we currently have the VyOS firewall that we can't turn off or we'll lose the configuration that broke. We have the OPNsense firewall, the 2 Linux boxes. So I need to set up ETH4. I need to announce routes. So once we start putting traffic on the system, I'm sure the Ryzen will work a little bit harder. If I go back here, have you suddenly found a way to static neighbors? They're advertising all the routes over OSPF, but they're not advertising the ones that aren't OSPF links. So they're routing to each other, but they're not routing outside of that. I know, more packets. Oh, it's in the instance config. Routes. I'm listening to you guys. I'm enjoying your conversation. This is great fun for me. I enjoy doing this on my weekends. I think most of you are not at terrible times of day. Maybe the Netherlands is a bit late. You're 6 hours off from me, so yeah, you're like 9 p.m. YouTube isn't that bad. Most of YouTube is pretty... So how are you not getting... I want you to advertise more things. Comment section of YouTube videos are sometimes fascinating, sometimes not. Okay, so you did something. You found a default gateway via the other router, but you're still not advertising your IP, not pool. This route. Dynamic active connected. There we go. So now you got a route to the other router. So if I go into like So it's routing correctly. Okay, so now I just got to make all the bridges. So what's going on is I'm making a bridge with an address bound to it. It's a /32. And it's bound to the loopback, so it's always active. And that way I can advertise routes to these 172.16s. And so if I look at the routing table here, it should have routes to other routers. Just so y'all know, I prepared for this stream. That's why I ate before. I got myself 4 cups of water off screen, Dr. Pepper, and hot tea. Instances. Are you advertising? You're not redistributing. I think we wanted to redistribute if installed. Okay, so now if I go to your routing table. Yay, okay. So now I can get, so each router has like a local IP. And it's 172.16.0. something. Oh, 3 of them do, because I didn't set the 3 up yet. So now I should be able to go to you. And ping you. Oh yes, pinging over OSPF. That was not that hard. This was fun. So you're pinging there. What if this link goes down? I can't delete links when the routers are running. That's a slight unfortunate simulation. Oh, I can. Can I not recreate new ones? Can we undo that action? I kind of liked that that wire there. Shit. Okay, we'll stop you. We'll put the wire back. Start you again. If I make a network block here, I can change connections to and from the network block. I didn't install VyOS. When I restart VyOS, then everything will be fucked. Okay, you're back. Winbox is back. You're back. Thank God. So now what happened to firewall 4? 5, 4. So you have found some of the other people. Yeah, look at all those. So you can go by Ether 3 or by Ether 2. And it's the same distance. Actually, distance in this table isn't an OSPF distance. Restarting VyOS. I actually never installed VyOS, so all of my settings are just saved in RAM. Which is kind of unfortunate, but at the same time I didn't like it that much, so. Hello. Redistribute. And firewall 5, because we decided to make a hexagon was a good idea. It's clearly a best idea. Hexagons are the strongest shape. one more. Firewall 6. Loopback. Give the loopback an IP. Yes. VyOS is lagging. Better kill it off. Nope, not an interface template, an interface. Okay, so your ring should be complete now. Now we have a nice big route list. So on Firewall 2, which is this guy, it's decided to route to the internet via Ether 3, which takes it to Firewall 1. It's a logical choice. It's decided that it can get to all of these networks, which are the point-to-point links. It can get to all of the loopback links, some of them in 2 different ways. What's a plus? O is OSPF plus CCNP? DO. I see, so it has 3 different ways to get to 172.27 and it chose Ether 1. But it has 2 other routes from OSPF that it could use if it wanted to. So if I take this firewall down, what happens here to our new routing table? Does the routing table get pissed? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Winbox. Can you, like, refresh? You're still going by Ether 3. It's not a great choice. Exchange seems like a bad time. Okay, so now we're routing the entire ring by Ether 2. We'll bring you back up. Firewall 3. Are you not advertising? Oh. You're also connected on Ether 4. I've never had to work with Exchange, but that seems like a painful time for everyone involved. I'll just say. So now we have 2 ways to get to default by our local connection or via Ether 2, which takes us around the ring that way. Seems logical. Let's get onto one of these. You're picking Ether 2 as your choice, and you are Firewall 6, so you would go up there. That makes sense. About Firewall 5. You have 2 paths. You could either take this path or this path. What does that mean when it says ECMP? Oh. Great. Page not found. Oh, send an email. when the Exchange server goes down. Yes, that doesn't work, does it? Because it, yeah. How about Linux? What can you ping? Let's see. I guess I can ping intermediate links, which I probably don't want to be able to do, but I guess nobody cares. Yes, dumb requests from directors. So in theory, I should be, oh, I don't have my route set up the other way. I was gonna say I should be able to disconnect them from their management and manage them through themselves. I guess I could try that. You can't SSH from yourself. You can ping. Raspberry Pi back. Okay. So I had pretty good time here with RouterOS again. Oh, stop it. I can move it around, but if I click on it, then it wants to open it. So what can't I do in RouterOS that I'm currently doing in OPNsense? Not this OPNsense, the real OPNsense. CHR, you can do WireGuard. System SSH. Ah, yes. So we're on firewall 6, so we would be at 0 to 6. Now if I would go to 0.3, nice. So we're routing around the ring. So we have the ring network set up here. All of these networks in the middle are management, and they're not allowed to route to them except to the outside world. And then these two are where they're supposed to route when they want to go to the outside world, but in reality they end up using this one. So I can now route around the ring network using OSPF. It's beautiful. The one thing I think I'm lacking in RouterOS is OpenVPN. OpenVPN. Yes, have you tried turning it off and back on again? I'm sure all of you are familiar with the classic British TV show, The IT Crowd. was awesome. You're right. It was a good show. I love the episode where she brings the internet to show the shareholders, and they all think it's real. And the IT guys are like, they're going to think it's dumb. They're going to think she's so dumb for thinking this box blinking lights the internet. And they all believe the box blinking lights the internet. Packages. I feel like I need to download all packages. I don't know why I feel that way. User manager, UPS. Where did OpenVPN end up in the configuration of everything? System. PPP. That doesn't look like what I want. Wireless. Obviously wireless is what I want. So where is the OpenVPN? IP pool. PPP. Okay. Interface OpenVPN server. Okay. So it's under interfaces. I'm not surprised to hear that some engineers are having a hard time with their networking. IT is the kind of thing that a lot of businesses don't like to talk about because it's like not the part of the business that they see as making them money. But it's still very important. Okay, so we at least have OpenVPN, even if I couldn't find it in here. You're not an IP tunnel. All IT all the time. Oh man, that's what I missed. I need to make a new OVPN server. Haven't quite figured that one out yet. Assign address now. Okay. I guess I could assign an address to, not to the route list, not to OSPF, probably not to terminal either. Oh man. Interface, no IP address. Why are you mad? Yes, working from home was a great thing. It is a great thing for most companies. Yeah, having like remote access seems like basic. That's why I'm wondering how to configure OpenVPN better in MikroTik, because that's the only feature from that and NTOP are the two big things I think I would miss going to MikroTik from OPNsense. Instructions tell me how to do it from the server. Maybe I'm better not running an OpenVPN server on my network switch. I think it can run WireGuard though. Yeah, so WireGuard's in a different place. Interface WireGuard. I wonder what the best way is to set up a VPN endpoint. I mean, I currently do it in OPNsense, just like as an interface. But I guess WireGuard in general is not the easiest thing to manage. Oh wow, it's been 3 hours. Has it been 3 hours? Wow. Okay. I think I'm probably going to end soon anyway, because it has been 3 hours. 3 whole hours. Okay. So yeah, I guess I will, I probably will have a video coming out on Thursday, and I'm hoping to do bonds and bridges in Proxmox someday. So yeah, I guess I seem to like doing these live streams. I've always ended up just doing RouterOS, but this was fun learning EVE-NG. I think it's useful. I'll probably keep using it. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the future. Bye.